Kit, why is the Fed spending so much time talking about the flat curve?
I don't know. I wish they wouldn't, frankly. You know, the people like me have an expectation of where Fed funds are going that's driven 90% by what the Fed's been telling us. They've done a huge amount of work rebasing our expectations about where neutral policy rates were, and so getting us used to the idea that just under 1% is where neutral would be in real terms. So just under 3% is where neutral would be in nominal terms. So we price 1 year rates in 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, or 10 years, just above 3, just, you know, kind of a little bit of a risk premium put into it for good luck. But we assume the Fed is on a journey towards kind of a 3% Fed funds peak, maybe just below, but you know, we're not terribly fast.
Somewhere around
Fine.
there. Yeah.
That's what they've told us to do. If that's what they are doing, what they told us they do, then as we get closer to the top of that level, we will have a flat curve. And if they then have to say, well, because of inflation and trade war and anything else, we might have to get a little bit above neutral and have tight policy. Once they say that, presumably I'm supposed to have the 1 year in 1 year higher than the 1 year in 5 years. And that's an inverted curve. So, you know, we should expect flatter yield curves where if we've got lower neutral real rates, we should expect flatter yield curves if we've got more forward guidance from central bankers. And if I were the central bank, I might be telling people, this doesn't mean that every inverted curve is followed by a recession, don't be so silly. Why some at the Fed clearly believe that a very flat or an inverted yield curve is dangerous beats me, frankly. But I can listen to shows on Bloomberg where it's very clear that there's a consensus amongst a lot of people.
OK, so this is interesting. So you clearly spend a lot of time listening to Bloomberg, and certain people talk about recessions a great deal. But nevertheless, what you told me when you sat down was when you go and talk to people in the United States, that's not the message you're getting.
Not from American corporates. So I see a mixture of big American companies whom I do business with my employer, and you know, hedge funds, institutional money managers who are in the same business as we do day to day. They're pretty optimistic about life in corporate America at this point in time. It's going well. You know, their concerns are about how expensive it is to hedge their earnings in Argentina or in Turkey, or what's happening in China. Are they going to let the yuan weaken? These are the concerns they have. But business is good. And when I turn around and say, you know, this is an economic cycle that didn't need the adrenaline rush of the last fiscal ease, given that it's by any accounts a pretty middle-aged cycle. Then they turn around and say, well, but surely it could go on for a while. So
what does a while mean, do you think? What do you like? Is that 18 months? Is that 24 months? Is that?
Well, there's no reason why an economic cycle should roll over unless there's a catalyst. So cycles get into trouble because, I don't know, there's some wage pressures in a tight labour market that forces companies to raise prices. That makes central banks raise rates, and then profit cycle turns over, and then the economic cycle goes. So, you know, the cycle doesn't have to end. What's happening at the moment, late cycle fiscal easing, makes an earlier end to the cycle more rather than less likely. But at the moment, it looks fine.